Fugitives barely manage to reach their car, but finally they drive out of the complex. Devin and his team don't give up. The chase begins on the night road. However, Iman's car runs out of gas, and the men have to hide in the narrow streets of the city. The old man's heart begins to fail, and he runs out of strength. Iman has to leave his father and run alone to avoid being caught by the gangsters. Intan wakes up from memories. Many years ago, the young woman also broke the law and taught Iman to do the same. At the time, it seemed like an easy game to her, but now she didn't know what to do and how to save her friend. Things become even harder for the young woman after she receives a message from her mother. The woman demands that Intan send her money and asks her not to come over the weekend and ruin her plans. Iman calls his friend and asks her to come to an abandoned construction site. Finding her friend in a bad state, Intan takes him to her place. Meanwhile, in his lair, Devin feeds his feeble father. The gangster enjoys the old man's suffering, who had treated him and his mother cruelly many years ago. Iman's father watches the scene nearby. Seeing how the bandit treats his father, the old hostage realizes he has no chance of being saved. Iman takes a shower and gets rid of his knocked-out teeth. While Intan hears the water running, she decides to check her friend's computer. The young woman doesn't manage to do it. Her friend comes out of the bathroom and takes the laptop. Intan then demands explanations, but the clerk refuses to talk about his problems and assures her he just fell. Devin sends the fugitive a video message in which he uses a hammer again to convince the young man to come for his father. Intan starts having problems. Ash tells her that Irene demands all the video files from the cameras. The young man asks her to send them to the office, including those that were deleted. Taking advantage of the young woman being busy with the conversation, Iman escapes. Realizing he can't handle it alone, Iman decides to seek help. He makes a call, and an hour later, the young man descends into the city's underworld. Iman meets the guy who drove him to the bank on the day of the first robbery. The drug dealer is unhappy that Iman wants to involve him in a criminal story. He punishes his friend for being pushy and refuses the fee Iman could have paid him. Ash covers for Intan and tells Irene that all the videos were damaged. The young woman thanks her colleague, but he asks her to tell him the truth to understand what he's getting into. Iman witnesses an attack on a city cafe. While the young man is distracted by the shooting, an old friend appears behind him who seems to have changed his mind and is ready to help. The blonde leads Iman to a secluded place and demands a down payment. When the money is transferred, the young man tells Iman about Ibu Zara, a woman from the criminal world who is much more dangerous than Devin. Meanwhile, Ibu Zara finds a man who tried to do something horrible to a little girl. Recalling her own terrible childhood, Ibu Zara promises to become a protector for the girl, and her henchmen do their job. Devin also punishes his men. He is furious that they let Iman escape. The young man's father barely survives the ordeal, but it seems to him that he hears his son's voice, which gives the old man strength. The blonde arranges a meeting for Iman with Ibu Zara. The young man says his friend needs help, and Iman promises Ibu Zara any amount of money for saving his father. As proof, the young man transfers the first part of the sum to the woman's account. But Ibu Zara also refuses to deal with Devin and kicks the young man out of the car. Intan watches the video several times and finally decides to tell Ash everything. She comes to his place and tells him that Iman is hiding the truth, but it turns out that the young man is not the only one involved in the bank scams. Ash found out that Irene also tried to delete some data. Stubborn Iman returns to his old acquaintance and asks for help again. He promises his friend a very large sum of money, and the dealer finally agrees. The young men sneak into Devin's lair, and Iman finds his father, but they don't manage to leave. Devin and his men enter the room to enjoy their power and destroy the captives. Suddenly, armed men burst through the door, and a shootout begins. Taking advantage of this, the young men try to escape and take the old man with them, but Devin stubbornly refuses to let them go. A shot is heard from the far corner of the room. Devin falls to the floor, and Iman sees a joyful Ibu Zara in front of him. It seems that having freed himself from one pursuer, the young man has fallen into the hands of a more dangerous gangster. Iman has a nervous breakdown because of everything that has happened to him, but his friend takes the young man and his father away so they don't fall into the hands of the police. Since early childhood, Iman was good with computer programs, and Intan was always proud of her friend. Now this becomes the young woman's nightmare as she falls asleep in Ash's apartment. Ash makes breakfast for his colleague and suggests continuing the discussion about the situation. But before that, he asks her to tell him about herself so they can get to know each other better. The shootout at Devin's lair is reported on TV. Iman realizes he has gotten into a very serious story, and to confirm his words, there is a knock on the door. An associate of Ibu Zara is at the doorstep, asking Iman to come with him. Intan finds out that Iman paid for his father's surgery at a private clinic. The young woman understands that her friend somehow got the money, but she doesn't know about the stolen cents and can't figure out the system. Additionally, the pair tries to find out what Irene was doing with the computer. Ash suggests checking all the logs where Irene's authorization should have been saved. Iman is brought to Ibu Zara's house where she is recording an interview about her charitable activities. The woman helps single mothers and abandoned children. The woman asks the guest to help her unzip her dress, and on Zara's back, Iman sees a terrible scar from her past life. The young man tries to understand what the influential woman wants from him, but Ibu Zara is in no hurry to explain. Instead, she takes the young man to the city center, tells him about the injustices of life, and offers him a job. Iman understands he has no choice. If he refuses, he will face the fate of all of Ibu Zara's enemies. Intan tries to find out who paid for the old man's surgery, but they refuse to provide her with that information. While the young woman talks with the administrator, Ash discovers that access is closed everywhere, and to get answers, they will have to check all the servers. Zara hires Iman, demanding half of his loot. The young man understands this is the best option available, but a black jeep appears nearby, and new, unknown enemies take the young man away. This time, the young man is taken by the police, who demand he turn in Madame Zara. The young man assures the cops that he is just a volunteer at Ibu Zara's foundation, but the officers don't believe Iman's testimony and decide to make him talk. Unaware of what happened to his son, the old man packs his things to flee. He is interrupted by a call from Intan, who says she will visit soon to check on her old friend. Iman doesn't give in to the police's persuasion, and they dump him on the outskirts of the city. As soon as the young man regains consciousness, his father calls and asks him to come to the old apartment urgently. The old man manages to get home just as Ash and Intan arrive. The host tries to distract the guests by talking about how he dreams of marrying off his son, but when Iman arrives, it becomes clear that marriage is the last thing on his mind right now. As usual, Iman invents a story about how he fell, but his friends don't believe it, just as they don't believe the story about distant relatives who paid for the old man's surgery. Then Intan shows her friend the footage from the cameras, but the young man wriggles out of it and makes up another excuse. This deeply disappoints Intan, who had trusted the young man since childhood. Iman arrives at the station with his father and buys 2 tickets to another city. But at the station, the young man notices he is being followed, and he decides to postpone the trip until better times. The thief tries to figure out how he was tracked and suspects Intan. To divert suspicion from himself, the young man decides to frame a colleague whose fingerprint he stole on the day of the robbery. Shimad opens the virus-laden email that Iman sent him. The clerk finds a message about a vacation and 2 tickets to a resort, supposedly received from the bank's management. Iman hacks into Shimad's home and work computers, and on the day his colleague is absent, he plants evidence on his desk, a card in Ash's name that was used to access the server room. Intan finds her partner in her office, but Ash says he had to take her computer to restore Reza's data. At that moment, they are asked to come to the hall where an incident occurred. Someone is trying to hack the service again from Shimad's computer. Despite all precautions, Intan suspects Iman is involved in the new attack, but the trail leads her to another employee, Shimad, whom the security service is sent after. Everything falls into place. The suspicion completely shifts to Shimad, and the card on his desk confirms it. The man is arrested and taken from the office. Despite his success, Iman suffers from guilt. He stops to deal with the stress, but the familiar cops again take the young man for questioning. The story repeats, but Iman doesn't give up. He assures the police he knows nothing about Ibu Zara's criminal life and will not testify against her. After these words, the woman enters the cell and admits it was a loyalty test. Iman executed his first scams as a child. An adult acquaintance helped him create free transit passes. Back then, Intan helped her friend and was happy to participate in secret operations. Even then, the teenagers talked about money being the main problem. Iman's mother left for a wealthy friend, while Intan's parents were never home because they were always trying to earn money. One day, the girl went with her friend to visit his mother, but the woman refused to come out because she didn't need her son. Intan always worried about her friend, and now she came to him to apologize. The young people managed to talk, but in the end, a man confesses that he is leaving the bank. He tells the girl that he got a job as a web developer at a company, but in reality, the young man starts working for Zara, siphoning 1 cent from different banks every week. Half of the profits go to him. To protect himself, he withdraws small amounts of cash and hides them at home under the ceiling. The young man's behavior begins to worry his father, and they have arguments. Ian accuses the old man of never thinking about the family. Unlike her friend, Intan's relationship with Ash improves. The couple has dinner together and spends a lot of time together. A strange old man appears at Iman's apartment entrance. When the young man tries to find out what he wants, the stranger attacks.